I'm sorry if I do seem like I'm ranting in in this episode. It's just music has played such a big role in my life. Like it just has. Like if you ask anybody, I love music. I deep down love music of every form: alternative, rap, jazz, soul, um, anything really. Neon soul, jazz, country. I listen to a vast variety of music, and I just wonder where these laws end up. Is it only hip hop? Is it hip hop at all? What are the pros? What would the life sentences be, or what would the sentences be? This is just stuff that pops up in my mind when I'm thinking about hip hop and where the face of hip hop will go.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Okay, so a huge disclaimer before I get into this topic real quick, because I think this is my argument with people saying, well, people in hip hop this generation are careful what they say is not what it used to be in the 90s. Okay, and this is kind of my kind of rant on the subject of why rappers can't say what we used to say, what rappers used to say in the 90s, why we can't say it now, and it's kind of like a mixture of a bunch of different cases. It's a weird thing to talk about, but it's also a weird kind of thing to even express, because people talk about this new generation of rap isn't something that people can get involved with, right? And then Melly and Gunna. So Melly made 2 songs on his album called Mama Cry. It's called Mama Cry, and it's another song he released on his album that people were trying to say is the reason why he did it, right? Like, Melly has this problem, which I think I want to talk about that to a degree, because I don't want to take up like the crazy amount of time and go deep into the case, because those are kind of the cases that I want to look at. But it's Murder on My Mind, Mama Cry, and then for Gunna it's a Future song. And okay, so here's a disclaimer: I'm not trying to drag any hate towards anybody or anything like that. I'm just kind of gonna state my opinion on why I think rappers nowadays are more careful on what they say now versus what people said in the 90s. 90s, Black Thought, Jay-Z. This stuff that wasn't so crazy. Okay? And I just want to preface that with a huge disclaimer before I get into it, because I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, especially me. This is a touchy subject because the fundamental of rap, blues, R&B are that you can be free in yourself and express yourself, right? But in hip-hop, I think this is going to sway people to say, I don't like hip-hop anymore. But we have to look at these cases before we judge a rapper, because they're not talking about the stuff we want to talk about anymore, and why they talk more about empowerment now than they did in the 90s and stuff like that. We're gonna get into it, right? But I just want to put a disclaimer out there before I go crazy talking about it. But as it's been stated, Young Thug and his label, YG label, something like that, whatever his label is, they've been brought up on RICO charges. And I just want to express this: going to jail on RICO charges is something the only three people. So the only people that have been RICO charged are the American mob, and that the American mob that was locked up, I think he was locked up for life, is John Gotti. Which a lot of rappers use John Gotti or Gotti in a lot of songs, not understanding that they're referencing the Teflon Don of the Mafia or the New Age Mafia. Like, people don't understand that, and that that kind of bothers me, because no one, now, granted, some rappers used to get their money from mafia guys and gangsters and stuff like that. That's been known, right? But this is the problem. RICO charges are the whole purpose of the RICO charge was to go against the mob. It was racketeering, organization. It's a weird thing, right? Like, for example, the only Al Capone got charged with tax evasion. John Gotti got charged with a RICO, I believe, right? So okay, let me bring this more back into the hip hop domain, right? Because in that RICO charge, I believe it was a state evidence and it was a lot of stuff that went into it, right? Like, there were recordings and stuff like that, right? I believe in that RICO charge, I think that's what it was, right? RICO charges are hard to disprove, right? Like, if the federal government is after you for a RICO charge, they've been investigating you for years. Not 1 or 2 years, not 9 months, not 2 years, not 3 years, not 4 years, not 5. 5 would be the bare minimum, like the least minimum. And probably the normal is 10 years. They normally wait 10 years to get everybody at once, right? Like, that's normally how it's done. Right? But then we have this thing that's been surfacing for the past couple years, and it's this law, right? The law is that they want to use artists' words that they use in songs against them, right? And in the 90s, this wasn't a problem at all, right? Like, people could rap about anything. Look at Jay-Z, look at Nas, look at Black Thought, look at Method Man, look at Wu-Tang, just look around in life, right? Look at everybody, look at Wayne, look at it. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this new age of rap, you kind of have to play it safe to the belt, even though technically you're a celebrity. You come with you get attention that you necessarily don't want. And I don't think a lot of people get that when they become famous. They're like, I got the sweet life. I can buy 30 cars off the lot. I can do this. I can do that. Or I can put money here, And that's a smart way of doing it, investing and all of that, right? But in the 90s, you can rap about anything. For example, not throwing daylight on anybody, right? But remind you, Pac and Biggie got songs with Who Shot You, Hit 'Em Up, right? Like, those were fine during those times. However, if we look at the two cases now, right, and we look at Gunna, but we also look at Melly, right? I'm going to look at Melly first because Melly's case is more, kind of more known, right? Because Gunna just went in like a couple weeks ago. But Melly, they assume he shot up his friends, right? They have phone evidence. They have a bunch of evidence, right? However, they were saying that in the song he confessed to it. And in the song he talks about he was surprised and he did something that was unthinkable, right? But a lot of people, and PR teams can argue this with me, and I think that'll probably what it'll end up being is a lot of PR teams arguing with me. But they say, they used to say gangster rap sells. And it's true to a degree. I think that's the problem. It did sell, right? Because we have Snoop Dogg. We got 50 Cent. 50 Cent got shot 9 times. Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent. Dr. Dre, NWA. Like, gangster rap sold. It without a doubt, Pac, Biggie, no matter if you see them as lyricists or storytellers, right? Whatever side you're on, right? Stories have always been able to be told, right? And people can probably separate the fame from doing that or to do this. And to some extent, people could realize that not all rappers were living the life they were living. In the day and age with social media, that might not be the case. Now everyone says, and this is a good saying, that everything on social media isn't real. However, I would like to argue, right? Because we've seen situations where things have turned deadly. Now, if they'd ever turned deadly, who would they look at? That's another thing. Like hip hop has always been about beefs, diss tracks, handling music in a way that we handle it, right? Especially hip hop as a genre. It's not like R&B. Like it's not like Neo, it's not like Jaheim, it's not like Neo, it's not like Charlie Wilson. It's not like where they're just talking about love, right? Hip hop has always taken that that very dark approach to it. And I think that is the downfall. As I said, the '90s, the late '90s, the early '90s, 2000. In one video, Mary J was smashing a video. The car could have been rented or whatever, but she was smashing the windows out the car, right? Remember, and everybody was like listening to that, and there was no like incredible like disagreement with that. But there have been a few states in the United States. Now, how you view the United States is completely up to you, right? How you view other countries is always up to you. Other continents, always up to you. Like, that's always been the thing, right? And it's not just one thing that does it. However, how can people... Okay, so the problem comes down to this. And I think this is generally what that argument is for me. The argument is, can we separate the artist from their music? And now, granted, a lot of people will say that, well, no, if the artist is living that life to make that music, then clearly they're living throughout it, right? And a lot of PR teams will say, well, yeah, sure, we told them to act a lot more gangster because we think it'll sell better than if they talk about loving a girl, if they talk about loving her and not talking about like directly injuring or inflicting harm on somebody. Like, if you rap about that might sell more than love, caring for the person or showing remorse or giving a person their flowers. That's not gonna sell in hip hop. Like, it's rare, but it sells, right? Like, there's a specific genre for that. That's like the Kendricks, that's the Coles, that's the Logic, that's there's Joyner, Eminem, those are those kind of people that Black Thought, where if you want to talk lyrical and talk about, stuff like J. Cole's KOD, where he just talks strictly about his life, talks about the stuff like that, and talks about real genuine emotion. You have those people that talk about that. And Logic, when he talks about Aristotle, and I can get into that philosophy talk for days, right? I think that's my thing. Philosophy, we could have a full run on what philosophy is, right? And then I think that's the mindset of Freud. So when we talk about rappers it's a weird thing, right? Like, you could talk about handling people in your own way or being in a gang at one point. Now it's kind of, okay, if you rap about it, you have to kind of be more about it, or you can't really say it, because if you say it and you go to jail for, I don't know, let's just say you go to jail for speeding, right? And they go, well, clearly he's a flight risk, and he has multiple means. Let's imagine you're a celebrity, right? And you make Drake numbers. You make we'll go $13 million off of one album, right? That's that we'll say that's an estimate amount of weeks a listen, right? And you go to jail for speeding, right? And you're like, okay, well, I don't know much about the person, but what they say in that song. So it's like, well, clearly he's a flight risk, because in this song he said he said he could fly away and handle anybody in which way he want to. Right? Like, that's not giving enough information. It might be subtle enough to get away with it, and if the court be like, well, clearly he wasn't talking about anybody directly. For example, Tekashi 69, when he made a song about Durk, and he said the song was completely about Durk, wasn't about nobody else. He ran into the same issue of the lyrics being too much aimed at a person, where, that would normally be like defamation, right? But that if that person was to get injured, they would pull that song up and try to press charges. Now, would the charges stick? That would depend on the judge or the jury. A lot of other situations, the evidence, and that could happen. But I think, as a person that likes hip hop and rap the way it is, I think this is the thing. The artists that are going to be able to live into the next centuries are the songs where, we can tame it a little bit, or they can adapt. Or they're like the Hopkins, the Logics, the Eminems, J. Cole's, the Kendricks, where they talk about really serious matters that aren't necessarily, aren't going to be frowned upon or used for legal action because of a crime that happened and something, For example, we seen with A$AP Rocky, where he was in an event, and I think, they had guns they thought were related to him, right? Like, that's my thing. My thing is, this could be tricky, and I think this is why a lot of the current generation, is deciding that, okay, if we're going to make songs, it's going to be strictly club mixes. If it's going to have a situation, we might have a lot of the old method of keeping it offline, but I think that's what it's coming to, and it's a weird thing to talk about, because people are like, I don't understand that RICO charge when it's organized crime and they were getting money. For example, Tekashi 69, right? He wanted to live this gang lifestyle out, and stuff happened. Stuff happened and someone follow. I'm not talking about that at all. Just pointing out the examples of whatever you say in your songs. It's looking that way if these laws are passed in these states that want to pass it to lock up more people. It could be looking terrible for rap, and I say this as I don't hate rap. Like, I am a huge fan of rap. Like, I listen to a lot of conscious rap, but I do wonder, right? Like, if these laws become evident, and I haven't seen the actual documents or the laws or what they're going to pertain to them, but that does worry me, because we have people like Drake, Lil Durk, King Von, God rest his soul, Pop Smoke, rest his soul, X, right? That had altercations that were shot, or Big Pac, these would bring up questions, and I wonder if a lot of rappers would get in trouble because of the lyrics that they spit, and if they didn't mean it, I don't know if they could justify that in court. Now, they might be able to. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not really sure about the ins and outs, but I do worry. What happens to rap if? I don't know. If you're with me, you got any questions? What happens to rap? Like, are we, will we be able to change rap for the better? Like, will we be able to change rap enough where, now how you might feel about the artist, that's totally different from if you feel like they should be locked up for what they say in music. But can we really, will they be safe? Will rappers be safe from these crimes? And I don't necessarily know if they will, because it's looking like a lot of states want to pass it, or a few states do want to pass that law, where I think New Jersey passed it, where if you rap about something in your songs, they can lock you up for the lyrics that you use in your song, which I don't know. I do have a problem with them a little bit, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the only evidence they would need. Like, that would be my problem. If that's the only evidence they needed to convict you, where's hip hop gonna lead? I'm curious. Now, I don't know if I'll be here to see it, but I wonder if in 2040, right? Like, if in 2040, where will hip hop be? Or 2030, where will hip hop be? And I think this is a question I'm asking now because I'm seeing these laws. Or I'm hearing about these laws of where states want to pass it to where whatever you say in a rap song can be held against you. Now, I will clearly see the Melly decision when it comes down, whenever it comes down, right? The Melly case, the Gunna case, probably Young Thug's case. I don't really listen to a lot of Young Thug, but if this case comes down and I, see what the decision is, if they open it up to the public, we'll hear about it on blog sites or whatever, But I do wonder, where will hip hop be, right? Because I think it would, it's a weird thing. Like, could this imply to R&B artists like Tory Lanez that's more kind of vocal of about what they say, and it doesn't, like, what's the restrictions, and then what is the, like, I need the pros and the cons, and I don't really have, like, strong enough pros and strong enough cons, but it's just, I worry where hip-hop will be. And this is one of my concerns on why I wonder where it will be. But I want to know, how do you feel about hip-hop in this generation? Or how do you feel about hip-hop now? Just curious. I'll see you in the next episode, but I'm just curious on where hip-hop will be. That's all.